Okay, everyone, welcome to our Zoom conversation here on CSIDolphins.com regarding esports and, of course, in particular, the game of Overwatch. I'm David Pizzuto. I'm the Associate Athletic Director here at the College of Staten Island, and with me on this call are three, senior leaders here of Overwatch and esports in general. Over in your top left-hand corner is Alberto Sanchez, our Assistant Athletic Director, Esports Coordinator. And in the bottom right under me is Sal Caruso, our Intramurals Director, of course, oversaw our Gamers Club for the last couple of years as well, alongside Alberto. And then opposite corner from me is James Medina, who is the team manager for our Overwatch team. And for the next few minutes or so, we're going to be talking strictly about Overwatch and getting us ready for the season opener on Friday night against Malloy. It should be a lot of fun. We're unveiling kind of a historical event when we think about it, because this is the future of sports in general, and obviously a very sobering reality to COVID-19 and everything being done remotely. So, gentlemen, welcome, and it's promises to be a sobering conversation. And I do have a little surprise for you. I usually use this background as of late, but I got an Overwatch background for the occasion. I think this should look
very cool. Nice.
Does not look familiar to me, but I did a quick internet search, and this looks like it could be familiar to all of you. So, first and foremost, welcome. And Alberto, I want to start with you because the introduction of esports was something that you and I spoke about on the Dolphin Pod, our podcast, about 6-7 months ago. And at that time, we were kind of game planning like how this might become a varsity expedition within the ECC, and now it's a reality. So tell me a little bit about the feeling of getting this off the ground and having it be a reality now.
Yeah, I think definitely the time from when we first spoke about, the potential of esports being in ECC, they only had one game, which was League of Legends, and really they had Overwatch, which was just starting, and they only had a few teams. Now, as we fast forward to the fall 2020 semester, there's 9 teams competing in Overwatch this year in the ECC, and we're one of those teams. And they actually have a total of 14 teams in the league for esports in general. So the league has grown very, very fast, and we're just really happy to be a part of it.
Yeah, and Sal, you've been overseeing the Intramurals program, and esports kind of started as a student initiative to be like, hey, when are we going to get a video gamers club? How can we get this ball rolling? And you kind of nurtured that along through Intramural. So what are some of your feelings now of seeing something that began so very small to what it is now and what it's going to become on Friday night?
I mean, it's exciting, honestly, because to see those students just continue to develop their programs, and then not only those casual gamers, but the competitive gamers too, all together kind of joining each other and saying, hey, we like to play casual games, but we do want the competitive people to be together as well. So they all kind of helped each other out and support each other. And now it's a reality where we're actually in competition, and exciting to see that. And even the casual gamers now, the Gamers Club, are still going strong, and they're very much supportive of it.
Awesome. And I know that you two guys are tasked with actually growing the program as well, adding new games. But the game that we're going to concentrate on this afternoon is, of course, Overwatch, because that's what makes its debut on Friday night. And, of course, we have James Medina here, who's overseeing the team and serving as team manager. But obviously, James, you have a lot of experience with the game itself. Can you tell us a little bit, for those of us who don't know, what the originations of Overwatch have been as a game? I know there's been a sequel out. We're using the original. Can you talk a little bit about the history of the Overwatch game itself?
Sure thing. Well, first off, the sequel's not out yet. I believe it's been delayed multiple times due to COVID. So that, I think, comes out in November. Overwatch, of course, is a game from Blizzard Entertainment, who made other popular games like World of Warcraft, StarCraft, and Diablo. Overwatch originally was a different project they were working on, which ultimately got canceled and turned into Overwatch. It's a 6v6 team-based shooter with 3 roles and a variety of game modes.
Okay. And talk to me a little bit about those roles and those game modes. You mentioned that it's 6 versus 6, so at any given time there's 6 players against another schools or another team's 6 players. So tell me a little bit about the role that those 6 players are playing, and then what the object of the game really is.
All right. Well, there are 3 roles in Overwatch. There is tank, DPS, and support. DPS stands for damage per second. The tanks are mainly there to hold the front line and protect the rest of the team while also getting some damage in. The DPS are there to pick off any other players and deal more damage than the tanks can, and the supports keep the team alive with heals, shields, and other things.
And when you get ready to get into a game, an actual quote unquote battle, how do you determine who's doing what?
Well, originally Overwatch had an open queue, which meant you weren't picking your role before you started the game. Now, due to a recent update, everyone picks what role they're going to play before they actually get in. The way the format works now is you have 2 support, 2 DPS, 2 tank, so it's all even across the board. So before you get into the game, you already know what role you're playing, and you cannot switch that role, though you can switch your characters in that role.
I see. So if you're a player in the game, you kind of have to have a good sense of all the roles, right? Because
Yes.
your role could be given to you at random, correct?
No, you pick your role.
Oh, you do? Okay.
You're never going in blind. You always know what you're going to do.
Gotcha. And, obviously most people are used to playing Overwatch online. Is it common for there to be clans or predetermined teams going into normal games online, apart from like the ECC and college gaming? Is it normal for teams to already be pre-established, or is it usually you're in a game with 5 strangers?
It's really a mix of both. It's usually better when you're in a mix of when you're teaming up with your friends, because Overwatch is a team game. But there is definitely a solo community, people who just play it by themselves, get matched with 5 strangers, cross their fingers and hope for the best.
Right. And, as far as the team itself and competition within the ECC, Alberto, maybe you could chime in with this one. What are some of the overarching rules of play that maybe are specific to what we're doing in the ECC, as opposed to like the general gamer who goes online and starts to pick it up?
Yeah, so one of the main things that happens in competitive is that there's several different modes that you have in when you go to play Overwatch on your own. You have quick play and you have competitive play. Because we have pre-made teams already, all of our games will be considered custom games. So in the custom games, you're able to set rules, and those rules are different for each game mode. And you have 4 different game modes. You have control, you have assault, you have hybrid, and you have escort. So what you'll see in the ECC will be different than what you see in quick play, for example. Escort mode, for example, is done with a timer in competitive mode or in custom games that you'll see in the ECC, as opposed to quick play, where escort is just simply getting from point A to point B. So you'll see a lot of different rules that you won't see in quick play.
Gotcha. And, how do we determine wins and losses? How long does a physical game take? How do you win?
I could explain that.
Sure.
All right. Well, each game of Overwatch is a separate match, so to say. So Overwatch has a couple of game modes, like I mentioned earlier. There is Assault, Control, Hybrid, and Escort. Assault is basically attack defense. One team attacks 2 points, one team defends 2 points. Escort is one team has to escort a cart across the map all the way to the finish line, and the enemy team has to stop them. Control is 2 teams fight for the control point in the middle of the map, and each time one of them gets their score to 100%, it goes to a different map it goes to a different section on the map, and whoever gets 2 points in that game mode wins. And then hybrid is a mix between attack defense and escort. First, the attacking team has to capture a point, and the defending team has to defend it. If it's captured, then a payload will come out, and they have to escort that payload to the end of the map. And there's a specific in the ECC, there's a specific order in which these are played, and I believe I have it right here. It is. Let me just find it. It goes control, assault, hybrid, escort, control, and it only goes to that last control if both teams are tied.
Gotcha.
So, for example, say the first map is control. Say we win control, we get 1 point. And say the other team wins the next one, which is assault, and they get 1 point. So each match counts as 1 point, even though some have multiple rounds in it. Now, since we're going to be playing on the competitive rule set, during each match, our team is going to get to play both sides. So on assault, we're going to be attacking and defending. So, say we mess up the defense part, but we kill it on the attack part, we still have a chance to bring it back and win the entire match.
Gotcha. And that third scenario is a random. You're either the attacker or the defender for the.
There are built-in tiebreaker mechanics in some game modes. Although if it comes to that, the game will just say it's a draw.
Gotcha. So for something like assault, right? The object, I would assume, is to eliminate the enemy. Now, does everybody have a health meter that once that health meter is done, you're done for the whole game, or do you respawn and things like that?
Well, in Assault, it's not really about... there really is no team deathmatch in Overwatch. Overwatch is all objective-based. In Assault, there are these sections called capture points, and the entire team, the attacking team, needs to get to those capture points and get it all the way to 100%. And then if they do get that, it's considered their point, they get the point, and then the defending team has to fall back to their final capture point and defend that. When the attacking team captures a capture point, their spawn is moved up, and they get more time on the clock. The defending team, their goal is to just defend the capture points and run out the clock. Now, you have unlimited respawns, and it's only about capturing the points in Assault.
Great. No, that's great to know. And, you mentioned that each of these game modes is worth 1 point. So with 5 game modes, I'm assuming that the first team that gets 3 points wins the match?
Yes.
Correct. Yes, it is based 3 out of 5 for the regular season and for the playoffs and finals.
Great. And, how long does a typical Overmatch match, so like a best of 5, how long does that usually take?
Well, if we're going by how the actual season is going to go, a competitive match of Overwatch can take about 40 minutes. So, say we win all 3 in a row, maybe we're in there for 2 hours. If it's close, probably closer to 3.5 hours.
And, it's funny because before we went actually on the air, I mentioned that I watched an Overmatch match for about 10 or 15 minutes. And it was, just like you said, James, sensory overload. It was tough to hang in that long. So, Alberto, Sal, maybe you guys can answer this one. What do you think about some of the stamina that these student athletes really have to manage? Because as James just said, sometimes you could be at your computer, thousands of finger clicks and cursor moves per minute for 3 hours long. That is a lot. How do you kind of see that?
So as a gamer myself, there's so many things going on, especially with Overwatch. First, obviously, your hand-eye coordination, your hand-eye memory, it needs to be top notch. So they have what's called key binding, where you have all of your abilities and all of your movements coded to certain keys on the keyboard. That takes a lot of memory because you need to be looking at the screen while you're moving everything while you're pressing the keyboard. And then you're also listening for audio cues in the game where, whether it's footsteps, whether it's ultimate abilities being used or regular abilities being used, you're looking out for all that. And then not only that, but you're also communicating verbally with your team. So all of these things are going on at once, and it's, every player's responsibility to make sure that they're doing all of those at a high level. And that takes a lot of commitment, a lot of dedication. We have scheduled practice times with our team, but if you go through our server, you'll see all the time that our team is practicing together, even when we're not scheduled, simply because everything needs to just be right and ready to go.
And I think, too, just to piggyback on that, it's a lot of muscle memory, correct, James? I mean, you just kind of have to play in the moment, almost similar to almost any sport. But the thing is with esports is that you're in the moment every second of the time. So they have to make a basketball player to make a quick decision in the moment, but maybe coming down the play, it's going to take them 10 seconds. For you, you have maybe less than a second to make that decision, right?
Yeah, and one of the sidebar conversations I've had with athletes and coaches, whether they're involved with esports or not, is that what sets esports apart, not totally apart, but apart, is that you have to have a really short memory. You don't get to enjoy victories in esports for very long, because 10 seconds later, someone's trying to kill you or shoot you down or something like that. And I know that just based on, the very simple Call of Duty type games where it's like, you feel so great, you eliminated a guy, and then less than a half second later, you're eliminated. So it doesn't allow you to really reflect too much, and you have to be really, really quick and sharp, right, James?
Yes. Definitely something that's going to be a factor is mental fatigue when playing for that long. These games can take a lot out of you, and since you're playing both sides, you're going to be attacking and defending. And Overwatch has a tendency to always go down to the wire, go into overtime, and you could be holding those points for like 10 minutes, 15 minutes. It's very draining sometimes. So being able to concentrate and keep your mind fresh and not get tired is going to be a key to winning this season.
Yeah, so I know it's very difficult to talk about all the little nuances and strategies for every single mode of this game. But James, you have a really tough job. You have to kind of manage this team as they're playing. Everybody's kind of listening to one another. You guys are all playing remotely for the most part. So, what are some strategies that you're going to employ as the manager, as the quote unquote coach during the games to have the team be successful? What are some of the things going in that you're going to need to accomplish to make sure that the team is a well-oiled machine getting into its first match?
Well, I think it's relatively simple. Really what I'm looking for when they're going to be playing, is teamwork. I want to make sure that they're all working together, because when you're not working together in Overwatch, you tend to fall apart. So I'm going to be looking for teamwork. I'm going to be looking to see if maybe certain players on the other team are causing them problems. Maybe certain characters on the other team are causing them problems. Maybe someone is focusing too much on one thing. Maybe someone is somewhere on the map they shouldn't be when they should be with their team. Or maybe they should have retreated when they were attacking. Stuff like that.
Now, what about when it comes to like talking to one another? Because I know, like I've played, like I said, some sports games online, some Call of Duty, and sometimes it can get really distracting because there's so many voices kind of giving each other orders. Do you guys have like a set game plan on like who's allowed to talk, when, and for what purposes, so that everybody is kind of has tunnel vision and is doing the same thing?
Given the chaotic nature of how Overwatch games can get, everyone has to talk because everyone has to call out certain things. So say, for example, your tanks are out on the front line and they're like, oh, this guy's coming in front, this guy's doing this guy's doing this. And maybe your supports are behind them and someone dives on them and jumps them and they're attacking them. They have to say, hey, Winston's diving me right now. I need help. Stuff like that. So everyone has to make call outs. And if everyone's not making call-outs, the team is going to be weaker. So everyone has to hold their own when it comes to communication.
Yeah, and one of the things that I've stressed, as with my experience, I've kind of tried to instill in the team from an outsider perspective, is communication is key in these games. It's one thing to call out, as he mentioned, but then you have to call out effectively. One of the things that I've noticed in games that I've played is a lot of people like to call out very ineffectively, which, for example, can be, there's somebody on me. That's what's what we call a bad call out. What you need to do is, there's different places on the map. Most of all the places on the map have names. So what we do is, what we try to do is to try to make sure that everybody knows their places on each map, so that you can call out, or you can call out the character that's attacking you, or call out the character that's being attacked, because that it's so much easier to focus with everything going on. It's hard to go look to find out where somebody is if they say, oh, on me there's an attack. Mm-hmm. So one of the things that we've practiced is just trying to call out effectively, because what that does is that reduces the response time that everybody has to get to that point.
Awesome. Yeah, that's some great information. And I know regarding the team itself, I mean, we have a pretty significant esports roster, but everybody has their own specialties, and the collection of Overwatch players, for the most part, is relatively small. Can you talk about, some of the strengths of our current team right now, what we feel we do well, what we feel we still need to work on, and maybe some things about the game itself that we could keep our eyes on and expect from this year's team?
Sure. Some things I think we do well. We have very good tanks. Our tanks have always remained solid. They're probably our best players on the team right now. I want to give them a shout out. What we need to definitely work on is communication, good communication, like Alberto was saying, because it's one thing to say, I need heals, but that doesn't give a lot of information. You have to say where you are, or like I'm behind you, or I'm above. So definitely working on effective communication is something we need to work on. And Overwatch is the kind of game that gets patched regularly. So, for example, there was just a big patch that nerfed a lot of the heroes in the game. A lot of their ammo was cut in half, so they can't shoot as much. Damage has been lowered, and since damage has been lowered, healing has also been lowered. So our supports have to get used to that. Our DPSs have to get used to that. Our tanks, some of the tanks got better, some of them stayed the same. So we kind of have to shuffle around the strategy. Maybe what we thought we were going to do, we have to alter slightly what heroes we were going to play.
Gotcha. So for someone like me, obviously Overwatch is going to take some time to get used to. It's not like sitting down and watching a baseball game or even a sport that we don't know well, like rugby, for example. I don't know the rules, but I can kind of get it once I watch it. But something like Overwatch is going to be brand new to a lot of people. And you're not going to be able to sit down and watch one game and have it figured out. So for a novice like me, for a beginner, for someone who's just starting to get into esports, what should they be looking for in some of these games? What are some of the things that they should try and pick up and watch the game with a little bit more, of a critical eye? What should we be looking for?
Well, one of the things you can look for right away without really understanding much about the game are ultimates. Ultimates are abilities that each character has. As it sounds, it's their ultimate ability. It's usually very powerful. And they all have distinct voice lines that are called out. So when you're playing, you should listen for ultimates, see when the team is using them. Usually you use them together so you can get a lot of picks and really disable the enemy team.
Gotcha.
I think something else as well that you can look for is obviously whenever somebody's eliminated, it shows up on the screen. So you'll be able to kind of tell whether CSI is doing well because you'll see a lot of eliminations of the other team. If you see that we're getting eliminated, then obviously we may not be doing so. So I think there's a lot of visual cues that our audience will be able to take a look at, and as well as audio cues where you'll be able to tell whether things are being effective. And like I said, one of the things that Overwatch does not have that I'm used to as a first-person shooter player, it doesn't have damage on the screen. So one of the things that you will be looking at is when we do show Overwatch from an observer perspective, you will be able to see everybody's health bar at once. So like all the characters will be displayed in the top corners, and you'll be able to see their health going up and down based on healing and based on damage being done or received. And you'll also be able to see their ultimate percentage. So when their ultimate percentage hits 100, that's when you need to look out because you'll be seeing some ultimates happen, and those could be really game-changing plays within a match.
When we're broadcasting the game, James and Dave too, are we going to be able to hear you guys communicating with each other, or do we hear the game characters?
I guess it's up to you guys.
Well, no, we won't be broadcasting the game, the team audio, but the game audio should be broadcast. So you'll be able to hear those audio cues that James mentioned, and you'll be able to hear just game sounds like bullets and abilities and voice lines like James mentioned.
Yeah, and I think just for terms of like strategy, it would be this. I wouldn't want to mic up our basketball coaches during a game to talk about like what their strategy would be to box out or whatever, to foul, things like that. So that kind of is going to be kept apart. But what I do plan to do when we do broadcasts is maybe at the end of a game to kind of talk to a couple of the athletes and say, what were some of the things you saw? What was some of the strategies? Where did we falter? Where did we have success? That type of thing. to give our viewers more of a sense of, oh, yeah, I get it, I saw that, you know. If you had to give like a checklist of what somebody needed to be to join Overwatch or Valorant or League of Legends or anything like that, what are some of those things that they need? What are some of those things that they would need?
Well, being an esports player might seem simple on the outset to most people, but when you're really playing and you're really getting into it, seeing how much better other people are, it really does take a lot of dedication, and it can take a lot out of you. And like any other sport, it's not really made for anyone. People think, like, you know, I've got my keyboard here, I've got my mouse here, I can play. It's not like in basketball where, hey, the taller you are, maybe the better you do. But stuff that we would look for, or stuff I would look for when I'm vetting players for the team, is their rank. Now, in Overwatch, there are a couple of competitive ranks. You know, you have Master, Platinum, Gold, Silver, Bronze. We look for the role they play. So right now, we have good tank players. We wouldn't really be taking tank players if they were to sign up. And then we also look for good communication. During practices, I like to pay attention to see who's talking, who's not talking, because really communication is a big part of Overwatch.
And on that communication too, James, it sounds like it's very military based, or it can be. You guys should have codes for each other, not code names, but kind of certain ways to say like where you are in a certain area, so that you all know what you're talking about, and it's be more effective that way instead of just jamming out. I'm over here. I need heals.
Yeah, I can speak to that a little bit if you want, James. Before you go ahead.
I was just gonna say the great thing about our players is they've all played the game a lot. The game doesn't have that many maps, and since they've played for some thousands of hours, we have the maps kind of ingrained in our brains. So if you say a specific part of the map, most likely everyone's gonna know where you are.
Right.
Yeah, and obviously there's terminology that the team is very familiar with, just in terms of the Overwatch game. You won't hear that in game, but oftentimes when I'm in practice, you hear things like on point, things like that. So there's a lot of codes that are used in practice when the team is communicating, that everybody knows where they are. And and then not only that, but everybody on our team is familiar with all the characters. So they could just look at a character's image and see, okay, we know they're going to have all of the, whether it's Winston, whether it's Bastion, whoever they're going to have on their team, they could automatically see. And then as the game progresses, they're able to, whether it's counteract whoever they've picked, if somebody isn't working out, they're able to switch their hero within their role. So I think our team has done a really good job, in terms of gathering all the knowledge that each person has and kind of bringing it to that team environment.
Yeah, and the question was, how to be a dedicated esports gamer and be a student athlete on this team. And James brought up some great things that they need as a player. But Alberto, you could speak to the fact that being a varsity team carries the responsibility of being a varsity athlete, and that carries some NCAA Division II, thresholds for success. Can you talk about what kind of student you have to be on the varsity side of the athletics program?
Yeah, definitely. We require all of our esports players to have a minimum 2.0 GPA, and for them to be taking at least 12 credits in the semester that the game is being played. So just last week, for example, we sent out an esports student broadcast and staff faculty broadcast, and we had over 40 students fill out an esports interest form. And what Sal and I do is we go out and we verify all of those CUNY First Sample IDs, and we look at their GPA and we look at their full 2020 credits. And we've had some of them that didn't make the cut, just in terms of those areas. And while you may have a high ranking in the game, if you're not carrying that 2.0 GPA, or you're not taking 12 credits in the semester that the game is being played, we can't put you on the roster. So it's one thing to be a really good gamer, and you also have to be a really good student if you want to play esports here at CS.
Yeah, and that's what I wanted to try and get across too, is that it's not just, a lot of people think that video games are done by kids who just sit at home and play video games all day, but all of our esports gamers are students, and they're good students. They go to school, full-time. They carry an above-standing GPA, and everybody by now knows that CSI student athletes carry a much higher GPA than the standard student body. So we're talking about very dynamic students here at CSI. So guys, we're coming down to the end here, and I learned a lot about the game itself. There were some things that I'm going to be looking for as we continue to progress. My final thoughts to you are what your honest expectations are for the season. The one thing I had a conversation with, I forgot who, it was Nick Duran from the men's basketball team. And he goes, I hope they know what they're getting into, because CSI is all about winning championships. And CSI is all about participating at a very high level. And obviously he was joking, of course. But he's kind of serious in that all of our teams really strive to be championship caliber teams. And while the pressure is not on you guys to bring home a championship in year one, that's certainly something that we're looking to do, is really compete at a very high level. Can you guys talk about what your honest expectations are for the upcoming season? Have you scouted some of your opponents? Do you kind of know where you guys might stack up so far?
So that's a little difficult to answer. Just in terms of taking a look at the schedule, our schedule will be very, very difficult at the end. We're going to be playing at the end, Southern New Hampshire University and NYIT, which are very, very good teams. Obviously our first ever game on September 11th against Malloy College is going to be very, very big for us. But it's really hard to kind of look up, information about games that have been played. Like, I've taken a look at all of our ECC opponents and tried to find games and tried to find footage, and it's very, very difficult to find. Outside of the ECC championship game that's posted on the ECC website, you don't really find games anywhere that people have just posted for people to view and to review. So it's been more of a focus on getting our team better, and making sure that we're doing everything we can, we're strategizing to our strengths. And then as the season goes on, or even as the games go on, with as we have up to 5 games to play per team, per game, we can kind of adjust on the fly. And I think a lot of the season is going to be that. It's going to be adjustments on the fly, because again, we don't know any of these opponents per se. Some of them, like for the not League of Legends, but for the Overwatch Championship, once we get the active roster submitted this week, I can look to see if any of those players are, from the last year team or on this year's team. And then we can kind of see how they play and see, how we need to, scout against them. Who knows whether somebody was a senior last year or whatever the case is. So the active rosters will be posted. And then once we get that, we can look up their ranks. We can look up, how they, how many hours they played in the game, all of that kind of stuff. And then we'll be able to kind of develop a strategy for that first game against Beloy and going forward all the other games that we have.
What about you, James? What are some of your expectations for the season?
Well, everyone on the team is very dedicated to the team. We're definitely trying our hardest, and I really think that we're going to see some success this season. We've got some great players. We've got some passionate people, and I know they want to win. I know I want to win, and we're going to do our best.
And I think that every goal in the start of any season for any team should always be championship. May not be championship or bust for some teams, but you have to have that mentality to start. And I think James and his team, and even all the other teams in Valorant and League of Legends, they all have that same mentality to start. And then, like Berto said, we're going to adjust on the fly, learn how we're playing as we go through each competition. And then when we meet them again in the playoffs, let's hope we make it. That's one smaller goal for us, of course, this year. We'll hopefully be able to compete against them even better than we did in the regular season.
And that was going to be my final question. I see on the schedule that there's a playoff round and then there's a championship. So is it the top 4 teams that make the playoffs, Alberto?
Yes, that's correct. I believe teams are going to be randomly seeded in the regular season. That ends up determining things like map selection and things like that. But yes, on November 6th, the playoffs will be the top 4 teams out of 9, and then the finals will be the final 2.
Awesome. So very last thing before I let you guys go, hopefully a lot of people, a lot of staff, a lot of coaches, a lot of just general fans are tuning into this and are getting excited about the season. And some student athletes or some students might be thinking about joining esports. So if they are someone who is a competitive gamer, who matches kind of the fit that you guys are looking for, how do they become a part of this community? What do they need to do? And let's give them some guidance on what the next steps are.
Yeah. sorry, James. One of the things is we encourage all of you to visit csidolphins.com and fill out the esports interest form under the esports section. Once you get that filled out, we'll verify your information, and then I'll be in contact with you. I'll discuss those people with James, and then or with any of our other team captains for any other game you're interested in. And then, if you're selected, we'll send you an invite to our Discord server, and you can try out for the team.
Awesome. James, did you have anything to add?
Yes, I've been getting some messages from certain people. I just want to clear up a little bit of confusion regarding most of the teams. I think we play primarily on PC, not console, because that is what most of the competitive official leagues are played on. So if you are an Overwatch player and you play on Xbox and you play on PS4 or you play on Nintendo, I'm sorry, but we're only looking for PC players right now. Or, well, we're only ever going to be looking for PC players. I think the same goes for Valorant. League of Legends is only a PC game. And I believe Rocket League as well. Am I correct, Alberto? PC?
Actually, no. I've received confirmation that Rocket League will be cross-platform. So if you play on PS4, you play on Xbox, or you play on PC, you'll be able to play on our Rocket League team. For those that we've gotten a lot of esports interest from all of our a lot of CSI students. And so one of the things that I've done is if they don't make the cut, whether it's academically or competitively, I've invited all of them to join the CSI Gamers Club Discord. I think that our CSI Gamers Club is growing at an astronomical pace. We have, in our Discord server, we have over 110 students. And we have officially at least 50 or 60 registered via CSI Connect. So the CSI Gamers Club Discord is like one of the first places we post any esports information. We post information that the Gamers Club is, events that the Gamers Club is doing during the semester. So, if their game of choice, whether it's Call of Duty or NBA or FIFA, if that ever becomes part of our esports portfolio, they'll be the first to hear it on the CSI Gamers Club Discord. And then obviously we'll do student blast once we get permission. But the CSI Gamers Club Discord is our first and foremost place to post any information regarding esports.
Cool. Well, this has been really informative, guys. I want to let everybody at home know, once again, this Friday night, 7 o'clock, CSI Esports taking on Malloy College in Overwatch. Next week, we will have another similar Zoom call set up to discuss Valorant and that game and everything that goes into that one, so that when we view that one, when we view the first match for that, we'll have a better understanding of the game, of the play styles, and of course, everything else that goes with it, and how to be a part of this tremendous program. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us on this Zoom. Best of luck to you, James, Alberto, and Sal, and the whole crew for esports this Friday night.
Thank you,
Dave.
Good one, guys.